Okay, so that's not quite what I wanted to do. So class, what you can do if you so desire is, oh, there we go. Go ahead and take out your notes because we will be taking some notes today. Now, you may have noted that I had made the comment that James was not necessarily the brother of Jesus, half-brother of Jesus. And you may or may not realize this, but did you know that the vast majority of Christians around the world to this very day, and definitely historically, believe that Mary was always a virgin? And if Mary was always a virgin, this means that she had no other children, obviously, right? So that Jesus is her only son. And that would make someone like James, or Judas, not Judas Iscariot, but Judas, the brother of Jesus, to be not the literal half-brother of Jesus, or at least Mary's sons, but rather some sort of other family member. James could have been Joseph's son from a previous marriage, but that is unlikely. The most likely scenario is that James, whether this is the author of the book of James or not, there is, of course, some question. Okay, so let's do a little bit of math here. If James was chucked off the top of the temple and went splat in 62 AD, which he did, and the book of James wasn't written down until about 80 AD, 80 Anno Domini, could the book of James have been written by James, the brother or cousin of Jesus? Is it physically possible? No. For those of you who do a little bit of math, no, the answer is no. And so the question of authorship is one that even the church fathers had about the book of James. So there's that. Why is this going on? Okay. Yeah. Does anyone know why I might suggest that? Okay, so to go back to the whole idea of James not being the brother of Jesus, have any of you ever wondered if that was the case? Catholic girl in the room? You have or you haven't? No. No, you got it. Okay, so clearly, could the Virgin Mary be ever virgin and had another child? No. So, from the Catholic perspective, is it possible that James is Mary's child? No. No, it's not. In fact, like I said, the majority of Christians today, 1.3 billion Catholics and another 300 million Eastern Orthodox, there's quite a few Lutherans that also have this as well, and maybe some Presbyterians as well. Kind of older style Christians are more into this thing. But it's also that the Bible itself suggests that Jesus was Mary's only child. Not just like trying to get rid of the whole, well, did Mary ever have another kid thing, but there is a story in John's Gospel which suggests that Jesus was Mary's only son. Does anyone know that story? In Jewish culture, when the husband dies, the caretakership always went to who? For the mother.
The son.
The firstborn son. Okay? And Jesus was the firstborn son. And yet, in the gospel according to St. John, we have Jesus on the cross. And yes, most of the disciples are gone. But there is his mother, and there is The disciple whom Jesus loved. Now, we're not sure exactly who that is. It's probably John. Could also be Lazarus, by the way. That's a whole other conversation. Very interesting, by the way. And what does Jesus say to Mary and to the disciple whom he loves? Which suggests he has no other, or at least that she had no other children. Yeah, he said, so even more so, he says, woman, behold your son. Son, behold your mother. And then the text says something along the lines of that. It's like, look after Mary from that day forward. Okay? So if James had been Mary's son, the second-born son, Jesus wouldn't have needed to have that little dialogue. Does that make sense? In fact, it would have been incredibly rude of Jesus to say, my brother James sucks so badly, I'm going to give the caretakership of my mom to this other guy. Right? So that's not going to happen. So to say that Mary had another son is not borne out by the witness in John, in the Gospel of John. So there you go. That's a complete side note. Something you guys probably had no idea about. We're going to pray. Before we do, I'm going to read just a section of text. No, I know you probably. I've had enough fun. How many of you already had enough fun? No more, please. I've read a little bit of James. I'm good. Guys, I like the book of Isaiah a lot. The book of James, gotta confess. Book of James, man. But it's got some good, I know. In comparison, right? I'm not saying it's meh compared to Emerson or Nathaniel Hawthorne. Yeah, of course, Nathaniel Hawthorne is terrible. You guys, have you ever read Scarlet Letter? And wish you hadn't? Good story, like, great story. If it had been 20 pages, you don't need to spend 5 pages describing a bathroom brook. Am I wrong? This is why I don't teach English. So anyway, Isaiah, great book. We're going to be looking at a text which looks forward to the coming of Jesus. By the way, are we in the Christmas season right now?
Yeah.
No, we are not. We're actually in what season?
Advent.
Advent. That's right. In fact, how many days are there in the Christmas season?
Well.
There are 12. 12 days of Christmas. The very first day of Christmas is the date.
Oh. 24?
The 25th. The 25th is the first day of Christmas. That's why the 24th is called Christmas Eve. It's the evening before the season of Christmas. And so we've got Christmas the last 12 days. It's done on January the 5th. That means we'll be back in school on Christmas. Yep. And then we have the Christmas for the Gentiles called the Epiphany. But anyway, right now we're in Advent. And Advent, it has really a twofold purpose. What is the twofold purpose of the season of Advent for us Christians?
To prepare for Jesus.
Yes. Okay. In what 2 ways?
This isn't my specialty. This is
My specialty? Well, I'm just seeing if you guys know. You may know more than you think. Yeah, so you're like, no, I don't. Okay, so the purpose of Advent is to prepare oneself for the coming of Jesus in this case, both as a baby in a manger. There's the first way that we prepare for the coming of our Lord. The coming of Jesus as a baby in the manger, which C.S. Lewis, by the way, considered to be the greatest miracle of all. It's called the doctrine of the incarnation. How does the fullness of God in its infiniteness, in its perfection, in its wholeness, take on human flesh and in some way empty that divinity? That in and of itself, when I say empty that, I mean empties the powers of divinity to be locally present, if that makes sense, in a physical human body. That is the miracle. That is the greatest miracle. More than creation, more than the resurrection of Jesus, more than the resurrection of the dead at the end. The incarnation, when God in all of his fullness takes on human flesh. We're looking forward to that with Advent, right? And what's the other way that we're looking forward to Jesus' coming? So there's kind of like, now I know some of you might be like, but there's a rapture involved. Yeah, I guess that's just silliness. Am I wrong? I don't know. Okay, well, whatever. So Jesus is going to return, and when he returns, what's going to happen? So this is the fulfillment of the entire biblical story. This is like the culmination. I'm sorry.
I just guessed trumpets.
Trumpets, yes. There will be trumpets. That's not exactly the meaning. So what's gonna? So guys, why are you Christians? If you are a Christian, right? What is the fulfillment of the Christian story? With God? No, God comes down to earth. Did you look at Revelation? Yes, God comes down to earth, and we live here. So when Jesus returns, the Bible, there's a great deal of emphasis on this throughout all the New Testament. It's called the resurrection of the body. When Jesus returns, you are resurrected from the dead, and God's kingdom, the New Jerusalem, comes down from heaven, and heaven and earth come together. Yes, does that kind of make sense? This is fulfillment of all things. The renewal of the earth. There's a new heavens and a new earth, and all these things happen then. And so we're also looking forward to the second coming of Jesus. So you see, Advent's all about the coming of Jesus. We're looking forward to the coming of Jesus, both as baby in the manger and as the King in glory who comes down to raise the dead and make all things new. So the text that we're going to be looking at, that was just, by the way, a very, very long-winded preface to a very short biblical text. It's from Isaiah, and it has to do with the prophecy, we're talking 600 years before the birth of Jesus, about the coming of Jesus. And within this text, you can hear that there are echoes of both Jesus' first coming and his second coming. So look for those echoes in this text. Text is from Isaiah chapter 9, beginning with the second verse, and also the 6th and 7th verse. The people that walked in darkness have seen a great light. They that dwell in the land of the shadow of death, upon them a light hath shined. For unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given, and the government shall be upon his shoulders, and his name shall be called Wonderful, Counselor, the Mighty God, the Everlasting Father, the Prince of Peace. Of the increase of his government and peace there shall be no end, upon the throne of David and upon his kingdom, to order it and to establish it with judgment and with justice from henceforth even forever. For the zeal of the Lord of hosts shall perform this. This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. We're going to open in prayer the collect for the second Sunday of Advent, which was a couple days ago. And then after that, I'll see if you guys learned anything in ethics class thus far. First period shocked me with their thorough silence. Let us pray. Stir up our hearts, O Lord, to make ready the way of thine only begotten Son, so that by his coming we may be enabled to serve thee with pure minds. To the same Jesus Christ, thy Son, our Lord, who liveth and reigneth with thee in the Holy Ghost, over one God, world without end. Amen. All right. Oh, I almost wish I could be teaching more Bible stuff rather than ethics. But you know what? Let's see what you guys know. So we've looked at several different ethical systems up until this point. And one thing I want to discuss with you here very briefly is the idea that when we use a term like the ends justify the means, of course, that's usually associated with which ethical system?
Utilitarianism.
Yes, utilitarianism. But in a way, it really does, it's true for every other ethical system as well. Like, the end justifies the means, but what is the end, right? In fact, in some ethical systems, it's really the means themselves are the ends, but at the same time, there are other things that you can do in order to accomplish your end. So, you guys have heard this. What do we mean when we say the word end? And what do we mean when we say the word means? If you don't know this, and my guess is in this class, everyone of you already knows this. If you don't, you should probably write this down. And before you start questioning whether or not this is useful for you, it is, because this will help you to determine what you think the correct ethical system is. Soon your pest is coming. Maybe Advent has a threefold purpose of waiting. The coming of Jesus as a baby in the manger, the coming of Jesus again in glory, and the coming of the pest paper that you will write and defend in front of the class.
I have a few I take.
The first two?
Yeah.
Yeah, me too. So these are good questions to ask yourself when you're trying to think about what's the correct ethical system. So what is an end? An end is, of course, the goal. What are you trying to accomplish in living ethically? That's the question. What are you trying to accomplish in living ethically? And when you figure out what your end goal is, then, of course, you can ask yourself the question, are all the means, everything else, everything it takes to get there, are those allowed? And if the answer is no, you haven't quite found your ends yet. Let's look so far at what the end or the goal of relativism would be, just to sort of review and to see what we kind of remember. Can somebody share with the class what they think the goal of relativism might be?
To not offend anyone.
What was that?
To not offend anyone.
That's definitely part of it. But I don't know if that's the entire part. Any other thoughts? Or
Like, it's basically to let everyone in their own culture believe what they want to believe. Like,
yeah, so if you're going to be a relativist, what is your goal in just kind of fitting in with culture? Oh, excuse me, that was the answer. Okay. The goal is not really complicated. It's kind of like, don't think too hard, don't offend too many people, kind of do whatever, meh. But if you want to be a bit more philosophical about it, it really is the slogan, like the slogan, right? When in Rome, do as the Romans do, right? So when you're in whatever culture you're in, do as the other people do. Just fit in. That's kind of what you do. And if you want to be a true relativist, then I guess you kind of have to do whatever you need to in those circumstances to fit in with your culture. And so that means that saying I'm Christian, do you run around smoking pot and cursing all the time? No, because that doesn't, what was that?
I did not include this.
Yeah. Yeah, are you talking about the class of 2009? What was that? Am I right? Yeah, no, it's yeah. There was a kid that had a whole massive 3-pound bag of pot in his trunk, and he's like, "Why are you guys kicking me out of school?" I'm like, dude, your whole trunk was full of pot. What do you think? It's not hard to figure out. Anyway. I think that, now of course maybe you guys are just better at hiding it nowadays, but I think that the moral behavior of the students today is generally significantly better than it was in 2009. Then again, it wouldn't take much. Okay. So in relativism, the end goal is to fit in with your culture. And of course, if you really think about this, then when in Rome, do what the Romans do. So yeah, you go to the gladiator sports and watch Christians get eaten by tigers. Cool. Okay. That might be a bit of a critique, by the way. I don't know if you noticed that. Egoism, what's the goal here? Someone tell me.
Do whatever you do.
Yeah, exactly. And so you addressed both the means and the ends. The end is, of course, self-interest, like whatever is in your own personal benefit. And then you need to do, if you're being consistent anyway, whatever you have to in order to maximize self-interest, to maximize your own self-benefit. In utilitarianism, what is the end? What is the goal?
Do whatever's the best for the most.
Yeah, exactly. Or, if I want to speak in a way that almost sounds glib, the end goal of utilitarianism is utility. What is utility? Utility maximizes benefit, advantage, good, and pleasure, while at the same time minimizing pain, mischief, and evil. right? And so, to put it very simply, the end goal is generalized happiness, or the greatest good for the greatest number of people, or maybe the greatest pleasure for the greatest number of people. That's pretty well synonymous, really. And so my question for you is, what do you believe to be philosophically here? So we talk about the PES paper, you know, your own personal ethical system thesis paper. And I think a lot of students get off on the wrong foot, and probably my fault for not making it explicit, is the idea that you're like, well, gosh, you know, what am I? Well, lots of times I do things kind of for my own selfish benefit, so I guess I'm an egoist. No. That's not the purpose of the PES paper. The purpose of the PES paper is not to say, what are you? I can tell you what most of you are right now. You're relativists. You have a whole pile of incoherent ethical beliefs that are all piled on top of each other, and you just kind of do whatever. And there's no sense to it. Because you're relativists. Am I wrong? So the question is not, what am I, but what ought I be? And maybe even more broadly, what should everybody be? Now, of course, if you're an egoist, you might say, I don't want everyone to be an egoist, and that makes sense for the egoist. But for everybody else, for any other system, you really need to be able to universalize it, right? So what do you guys think? When it comes to making up your mind, what do I believe to be true about human behavior and how we ought to live as human beings? So start from a philosophical perspective, not from something you're already doing. So what is the goal? So in other words, what is the end that you believe for humans in their living? What is the goal in your behavior, in everyone's behavior? How should everyone act? So before you answer that question, you have to answer, what is the goal? By the way, I'm helping you here right now very massively on trying to discern what system you're going to write your PES paper on. These are the questions you ask to figure it out. What's the goal?
Perfection of some kind?
Okay, the goal is to live perfectly?
No.
Well, I mean, that might be it.
I don't know. Everything's relative, of course.
Well, and that would be the difficulty, right? So who defines perfection? How is perfection defined objectively? Any thoughts? You guys already kind of know what you're going to say? Or you guys just totally like, I got nothing?
Are you saying like what we think we're going to do for our paper?
I'm saying, do you already kind of know what ethical system you believe to be right?
I think.
You think you know. Think you know. Think you know. Think you know. Like, I got nothing. You already know. Utilitarianism. Yeah?
Right.
No. Okay. We're going to skip that. There's a really fun discussion that I love to have with students. We'll come back to this discussion today if we have time. Kind of doubt that we will, though. Okay. So once again, thinking of your past, these are the same questions that I was asking. What are your ends? What are you attempting to accomplish? Is it the greatest good for the greatest number? Yes?
In a way.
Well,
In a generalized sense, yes. But like, in a way.
are all means allowed to meet that end? If not, you have not fully stated your ends. If you have more than one end, what happens when they conflict? And by the way, lots of times if he doesn't, you realize that more often than not, all the ethical systems that we've looked at will say give us the exact same direction, right? So if you're a relativist, right, you'll say, you know what, my culture says don't lie, so I'm not going to lie in this circumstance. And then, of course, you look at utilitarianism and you say, well, this circumstance will lead to negative utility, so I shouldn't lie, right? And then you look at, say, the divine command theory or Kantian ethics, and they all say don't lie. And so in lots of different scenarios, The action prescribed is the same action. It's just different philosophies that led that system to say that that action is right or wrong. Is that going to make sense? How many of you followed that train of thought? How many of you kind of didn't? Okay, man. And so the question that we really are asking is, what is the philosophy behind the actions? What are you trying to accomplish? Okay, we've been looking at Williams' critique of utilitarianism, and Williams gave us two different examples in his critique. One with Jim and Pedro and 20 Indians lined up to be executed. That was a charming one. And George, should George take the job where he produces chemical and biological weapons? His research is into that. And Williams presents these things, and then he comes along with this point. So this is kind of summarizing what Williams has said up until now. So I don't know if you guys have noticed. So far in class today, we have been a bit disjointed, right? So there's a bit of James, and then there's a video about James, and then I write a little bit about, the Bible. And then after that, we're talking a little bit about kind of in review the purposes of these different ethical systems that we've all already seen. So we just finished that. We've also talked a little bit about your past. So you notice that the subject here has changed. This is not one necessarily cohesive lesson. This is multiple points. And now we're shifting again, and we're looking at Williams. That's following all that? Yeah. Okay. Williams argued that if one of you, so gosh, I wish we had everyone here so we'd have more beliefs. How many of you, just out of curiosity, what was that?
Did you say more bullies?
More beliefs.
Oh.
More different beliefs.
More
More bullies. No, I don't know that Ian, Lindsay, or Emily are really bullies. I suppose it could be, I don't know. Are you guys bullies?
Good answer.
Are you still there?
You're all good?
Can you not see us? We were doing thumbs up.
Oh
Yeah, we did like smash, are you?
Oh, there they are. They're just smiling. I can't see you from up front, just to let you guys know. Actually, no, yes, I can. I mean, yes, I can. I'm saying this for the greater good. Don't judge. Yes, I can.
As she proceeds to walk back up.
Can they see you? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, they can see me. Okay, so how many of you think that Jim should shoot the Indian? Shoot one Indian to save 19. Let me see your hands. Okay. How many of you say no? All right, so one of you says no. So let's go with Christina. Christina, why should Jim shoot the Indian?
So they can save the other 19 Indians.
Celia, why not? Why should Jim not?
Because he's killing someone.
Christina, what do you make of that?
He would kill, by not killing one, he would kill more.
But he's not killing them.
It'd still be on his conscience and his guilt. The same
But
way,
he
killing
also
one is
have
will be
guilt
on his
either
guilt
way,
too.
though.
I mean, would it be on his conscience if he wasn't utilitarian?
Yeah, Celia, come on. You just need to suck it up and do the right thing here. Shoot, you gotta shoot the person to shoot him.
You gonna make me? I mean,
I'm just saying that, you gotta, I'm sorry, you're gonna feel bad about it and everything, but, you're gonna save 19 people here. You're killing 19 people by not shooting the one.
yeah, but you're also minimizing the value of a human being to numbers.
I think you're maximizing the value of 19 lives.
Are you sure?
So is my argument convincing you, Celia?
No,
No.
not really.
So here's the thing, Celia is not a utilitarian. And so utilitarian reasoning isn't going to work with her. I can keep throwing those utilitarian numbers at, but Celia, 19 people, you're killing 19 people. She's like, yeah, well, by the way, you should have said this. No, I'm not killing 19 people. Pedro is.
I'm not so.
Yeah, there we go. I'm not pulling. Pedro is one killing because he has moral responsibility as well. So what we're going to do at this point is go ahead and take out your course packs, turn to page 71. We're going to continue looking at the article together to see the argument that Williams has for us. We'll start on paragraph number 9. Can I have somebody in class volunteer to read that for us? By the way, people at home, you're also welcome to volunteer as well. And of course, you need to do more than wave because I can see you so well, but I also like to hear your voice in your volunteer.
What pages on the course pack is it?
Wave. Would somebody like to read paragraph number 9 for the class, please? Would everyone volunteer? Proceed.
The two situations have in common that if the agent does not do a certain disagreeable thing, someone else will. And in Jim's situation, at least the result, the state of affairs after the other man has acted, if he does, will be worse than after Jim has acted, if Jim does. The same, on a smaller scale, is true of George's case. I have already suggested that it is inherent in consequentialism that it offers a strong doctrine of negative responsibility. If I know that if I do X, O1 will eventuate, and if I refrain from doing X, O2 will, and O2 is worse than O1, then I am responsible for O2. If I refrain from voluntarily doing X, you could have prevented it, as will be said, and truly to Jim if he refuses, by the relatives of the other Indians. But what occurs if Jim refrains from action is not solely 20 Indians dead, but Pedro's killing of 20 Indians. That may be enough for us to speak, in some sense, of Jim's responsibility for that outcome, if it occurs, but it is certainly not enough. It is worth noticing for us to speak of Jim's making those things happen. For granted, this way of their coming about, he could have made them happen only by making Pedro shoot, and there is no acceptable sense in which his refusal makes Pedro shoot. If the captain had said on Jim's refusal, "You leave me with no alternative," he would have been lying, like most who use that phrase. While the death and the killing may be the outcome of Jim's refusal, it is misleading to think in such a case of Jim's having an effect on the world through the medium, as it happens, of Pedro's acts. For this is to leave Pedro out of the picture in his essential role of one who has intentions and projects for realizing which Jim's refusal would leave an opportunity. Instead of thinking in terms of supposed effects of Jim's projects on Pedro, it is more revealing to think in terms of the effects of Pedro's projects on Jim's decision.
So notice that the question that I have been asking has always been about Jim. What should Jim do? But our author's saying, wait a second here. Jim is not the only moral agent in the scenario. Who's the other moral agent? And actually is the moral agent that has the power. It's Pedro. And we're going to think about Pedro here a little bit, right? There's more than one moral agent here. And here's the thing with utilitarianism. It doesn't matter if there's more than one moral agent. You are always required to promote utility, whether Pedro does or not. And you have to be able to sacrifice everything, even your own self, to promote utility. Is that right? The utilitarian says yes, but Williams isn't convinced. Can I have somebody else volunteer to read the next paragraph? It's a short one. If you want to read a short one, this is the one for you. I will call on people too, by the way. Okay, Celia.
Utilitarianism would do well to acknowledge the evident fact that among the things that make people happy is not only making other people happy, but being taken up or involved in any of the vast range of projects, or, if we waive the evangelical and moralizing associations of the word, commitments. One can be committed to such things as a person, a cause, an institution, a career, one's own genius, or the pursuit of danger.
Okay, so to go back to the language, the definitions that we should look at in examining this article, Williams uses the term projects in a way that is synonymous with like plans, beliefs, commitments, beliefs, these sorts of things. These things are all sort of together. And so let me begin to illustrate for you what our author is going to eventually be arguing. So again, I believe there was, well, I don't know because my computer screen isn't working particularly well. To be honest, guys, I can only see you when I walk around the computer. So behave yourselves. 6 people in the class, 5 of whom said that Jim should shoot the Indian. 1 refused. Let me change the scenario on you just a little bit to see if you're willing to continue. And I think this is going to illustrate for you with an example of William's argument. Imagine you are married. And you, of course, have taken vows to your spouse. Love, honor, cherish, right? And you're going through the woods, and Pedro's like, hey, I don't like, white dudes. You're married to one. You shoot the white dude you're married to, and I will let 20 Indians go free. How many of you say, yeah, your husband? You can, yeah, Pedro's like, you shoot your husband with this gun, and I will let these 20 people that I was about to kill anyway go. Otherwise, you and your husband go on your way. Come on, you utilitarians. You do the calculus here. One guy whom you happen to have made your vows to, for the lives of not 19 people, but 20 people. You're going to save 20 people's lives. All you got to do is kill your husband. Come on, you utilitarians. How many of you say the right thing to do is to kill your husband? Come on.
Is he a good husband or is he a bad husband?
Are you guys really not utilitarians at all? Just a bunch of egoists? Yeah, I'll be utilitarian when it doesn't cost me anything. All of a sudden it costs me something. I'm not so comfy with it anymore. Is that what's going on here? Now Celia's like, I'm not in this discussion at all. I'm awesome. Thanks, I don't like to be uncomfortable. Like, you guys are probably uncomfortable. So are you going to be consistent here and say, yeah, guys, it's time for us to change the marriage vows. You know what I'm saying? Like all this, till death do us part. I promise to love and protect you. What a bunch of crap. I mean, it's a fine sentiment on some level, but we need to change it to make sure that we know where our true commitments lie. Here's how we should change the marriage vows. I promise to love, honor, cherish, and protect you until death do us part, unless utilitarian calculus says that I should sacrifice you, in which case I will pull your head off. Because let's face it, our true commitment is only to utilitarianism. I mean, it has to be. It has to only be to utilitarianism. Like anything else, in order to be consistent here, has to be given up. Now, it's fine. Like your kids all you want. Commit yourself to your kids all you want. But once utility requires, to sacrifice your kid, well, it's like, oh, my kid's got diabetes. Insulin's very expensive.
Like a personal story? Or
it's me. Yeah, exactly. It's me. I have diabetes. Insulin's very expensive. Well, take all that money, look at all the people who can be saved on the other side of the world that we don't know. Gosh, maybe the moral thing for me to do is to jump off this building right now and go splat. Just like
open it if you want.
Wow.
You pass away.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure that would just hurt me. I have to go a little bit more.
Well, then you can
Wow, is there some bitterness? Am I experiencing some bitterness here?
No, it's just like, she just pointed it out. Yeah, I just looked in the hospital.
Yeah, Crystal's like, you put me in a difficult position here. You got me sacrificing my husband, jump up. And you might even say it'll promote greater happiness because no one will have to do their best.
Oh.
Ooh. No. Don't, no. Okay, so anyway, you guys can see the point here, right? Where utilitarianism becomes a lot more difficult when it actually requires for you to sacrifice something that you have made a commitment to. Now, maybe Celia has committed to not killing random Indians. Pretty good commitment, right? I don't think there's anything inherently unusual about it. Like, I don't know about you, but I'm not really into killing people. I'm not like, oh gosh, always wanted to do this. In fact, I think that most people are pretty committed to not killing other people, right? Celia, would that mess with you pretty badly if you were to like shoot the Indian? Yeah. But here's the thing: utilitarian calculus still says you should do it. Like even if you eventually like get so distraught from killing the Indian that you kill yourself, that's still 2 people to save 19, right? Like obviously the utilitarian calculus says you and the Indian go, right? You guys think? You see that there could be potentially a problem with this? Now, how many of you, so this is going to be, are you okay, Sophia?
Oh, yes, I'm good. I'm just kidding.
Are you sure? Are you sad that you were willing to sacrifice your husband?
She's looking out the window.
I know
Yeah, she's right. Because
Okay. Wow, one day Beth prostitutes are ready to kill me? That normally takes weeks.
No, they're ready because it's for the greater good.
We've been online for weeks.
That's actually not for the greater good. Believe me, I'm
yeah,
sure
no,
that
actually, don't.
Donald Trump signed a law signed a law that basically lowered the cost of insulin. So insulin, rather than being like $330 a vial, is now $20 a vial. So you can't use the diabetes thing.
If you hadn't said anything, we wouldn't have known.
Yeah, well, I'm just saying, you can't use it now because Donald Trump made my life worth living.
Can I quote you on that?
No, that goes nowhere, people. Just from a utilitarian perspective. All right. We know the truth. There we go. Okay, so let's go ahead and continue looking at the article. Can I have somebody else volunteer to continue reading? Since Crystal wants to throw me out the window. Before she does, go ahead and read the next paragraph, Crystal.
Oh, see, okay. Now none of these is oh wow, this isn't gonna be good. Now none of these is itself the pursuit of happiness. By exceedingly ancient platitude, it is not at all clear that there is anything which was just that, or at least anything that has the slightest chance of being successful. Happiness, rather, requires being involved in, or at least content with, something else. It is not impossible for utilitarianism to accept that point. It does not have to be saddled with a naive and absurd philosophy of mind about the relation between desire and happiness. What it does have to say is that such commitments are worthwhile, then pursuing the projects that flow from them, and realizing some of those projects will make the person for whom they are worthwhile happy. It may be that to claim that is still wrong. It may well be that a commitment can make sense to a man, can make sense of his life, without supposing that it will make him happy. But that is not the present point. Let us grant to utilitarianism that all worthwhile human projects must conduce, one way or another, to happiness. The point is that even if it is true, it does not follow, nor could it possibly be true, that those projects are themselves projects of pursuing happiness. One has to believe in, or at least want, or quite minimally be content with, other things, for there to be anywhere that happiness can come from. Okay, so the question at hand is this: what actually does make people happy? If utilitarianism claims that our goal is to promote general happiness, fine. He says, fine, let's take it at face value. Sure, utilitarians, everything that we have to do in life has to lead to happiness system. Fine. How do we get happy? That's the question. How are human beings made happy? Or maybe we should say, how are human beings made happiest? Remember the scenario that Smart gave us with the we'll change it to my scenario, with the app on the phone. Like you have electrodes in your brain, there's an app for that. Yeah. How many of you had problems with that sort of a world that you see here? Okay. And it could be because the thing that was missing, yes, you were experiencing, in that sort of situation, experience pleasure and happiness. But you're missing something.
And what Williams thinks that you're missing is your commitments to your various projects. Now that sounds weird, so I'll back up from that language a little bit. But it's commitment to the things in your life that give your life meaning. Does this have much meaning on the phone? No. Your life has meaning because you are committed to various things. How many of you are part of a sports team and you feel kind of committed to it? Okay. How many of you would say that even though it's hard and you're not always happy as a part of it, you have to work out and you have to practice? How many of you say in the end though, it does bring you a pretty strong sense of contentment and you feel some degree of like loyalty and happiness because of that? Okay, the vast majority. How many of you would say also that when it comes to human beings in your life, your parents maybe, or your siblings or your friends, how many of you find that when you start out in the morning, you're not necessarily saying, how am I going to make myself happy today? But you go about your various commitments and your projects and your pursuits, and you find that just like with sports, that does bring a strong sense of contentment, like because of your friends, your family, parents, yeah. And so this is the question: what makes people happy? Can you directly pursue happiness calculus and be happy? Or in order to be truly happy, do you have to be committed to things? So let's look at the reasoning here. What happens when commitments come into conflict with other people's projects? This is once again to use the language that Williams uses. Remember, Jim is committed, potentially, just like Celia, and maybe actually the rest of you, to not killing people. Or at the very least, let's say not killing your husband. How many of you would be like, yeah, I'd be committed to not killing my husband, unless he was a real booger? Then commitment might go, I'm joking. How many of you say, no, I'm committed to not killing my husband? Raise your hands. Okay. You find that would be a commitment. What would make you happier? Being committed to your husband and being, what was that, Sophie?
If he was dead.
If your husband was dead.
Yeah, then I don't have to.
So what you're just saying, like what if anxiety is just to stop being insulin so he just dies and it's like, oh, I'm dead.
No, because I'm committed to not killing.
You're gonna, how you gonna,
But you'd rather him be
how you
dead.
gonna have him be dead?
If he's being insured.
Gonna hire someone to like run into him.
Okay, so.
And you could try to save them, but then you fail, so you're committed to something. Yeah.
I'm saying that.
So ethics has taken a very bad and dark corner here lately. And Sophie has decided that, yeah, not only do I not want to commit to not killing my husband, I want to leave it open as a very clear option just in case. Okay. So back up here, guys. Let's ask the question of what does make you happier? Commitment to utilitarianism or commitment to your various projects? So the reasoning is going to go something along the lines of this. Happiness comes from commitment, not from commitment to utility. If you're going to be someone with integrity, you have to stay committed. Would you guys think that I would be a very committed husband if the first sign of trouble I was like, you know what, I'm going to be happier and everyone else will be happier if I just give up on this marriage? Would you say, well, that guy's got a lot of integrity, look at him go, running from his wife? You would probably say no, that guy doesn't have integrity. And so this is the formulation. So let's take utilitarianism on its own terms and ask, does it work? I think this is the best argument against utilitarianism. There's really two major arguments against utilitarianism. One is that you don't know what the consequences are going to be, so it's really hard to know how to act. And the other one is that utilitarianism actually doesn't promote happiness at all. It promotes unhappiness, and this is that argument. I suppose you could also say that potentially utilitarianism could encourage you to do horrific things, like kill one Indian, or I'm going to change the George and the job scenario just a little bit for you guys to see if you're willing to say George should take the job. Okay. A man has to have anything called integrity, he must stand for something other than pursuing happiness. Happiness comes from integrity, but utilitarianism does completely away with integrity. Like I said, somewhat jokingly, right? Maybe we should rewrite the wedding vows, right? Just to make it honest. And what does that mean? That means that, yeah, you say I'll love, honor, and care for you unless utility dictates otherwise, in which case I will willingly sacrifice you for the greater good. How many of you would like that? Okay. Well, so in the end, and here's the argument. In the end, utilitarianism doesn't actually promote happiness. We're not made happy by committing to something like utilitarian calculus. We are made happy by committing to other things. And if we are all to adopt utilitarianism, every one of your commitments, every single one, other than that to happiness calculus, is on the chopping block, potentially. I love you, my kids, unless I have to sacrifice you for the greater good, in which case I will. I love you, my spouse, until utilitarianism says, you die and then you die. And so if you want to embrace utilitarianism, you're going to be less happy than you would be otherwise. Utilitarianism does not work. That's the argument. So what do you guys think? Does this argument kill utilitarianism as a possibility? Anyone? Okay, I've got one vote for yes. The rest of you are like, no, utilitarianism is still right. It kills it. How many of you recognize the logical argument here? Do you guys see that this is a very logically structured argument? And if it is right, then utilitarianism is dead, right? The question really is, what makes people truly happy? Is it commitment to something, or is it utilitarian calculus? Which would make people happy? If Williams is right and it's commitment to something, and I think he is right, then utilitarianism isn't very functional. Can I give you guys a slightly different example? Okay, so I changed the Jim and Pedro scenario and put your spouse on the wall. And how many of you would say the right thing to do, even if you're uncomfortable?
There's a chat on Zoom that you get to read.
Okay. Okay, feet are nasty. You are offering who gets turned on by feet. That's just disgusting. I am dead, LOL. But sugar daddies and sell feet pics make so much money. Females are terrifying. Well, after reading this chat, could be.
Who said that?
Ian says you can go to the part about chaos theory that was actually interesting. Yeah. Children.
We are paying attention, I promise.
Okay. I'm going to change George's scenario for you just a little bit. Okay, how many of you think, just like Jim should shoot the Indian for the greater good, George should take the job? Come on, let me see your hands. Should George take the job?
He's also like, when he's taking the job, he's helping his family, and he could he could slow it down.
Yes, I know. Who says yes?
Yeah.
Should take the job. Should take the job. Take the job.
I suppose there's like personal thing against it.
You have nothing personal against it, but if you did, you would say no. Here, let me change it for you just a little bit, and then you'll change your mind. Supposing his name isn't George, but it's Johannes.
Ooh, oh,
And Johannes is a chemist in 1930s Germany. You can see this is going to go dark real fast. He's kind of slight. His wife wants him to have a job. The military in Germany is, of course, being activated here by the Nazis. And George is can't find a job anywhere. The military doesn't really want him, except for they would love to have his services because they need to have somebody at Auschwitz on site in order to mix the chemicals that will be used in the showers.
Wow, that went extreme.
Yeah.
Let me just change it for you a little bit. Whole storyline just gone.
No, it's the same. It's going to be the same principle here,
Yeah.
right? And so here we have Johannes, and his wife is like, you know, it's not great, but at least me and the kids would be cared for. And you would be honored in the German military, and you'd be given a big bonus, and you'd be guaranteed a retirement for the rest of your life by taking this job. Now, of course, the Nazis will want to lose, but you don't know that at the time. All right. Meanwhile, George is offered this job. He also learns that there's a guy named Fritz.
Oh.
Now, Fritz is also a chemist, but his nickname, even by the SS, and that tells you something, is his name is Freaky Fritz. He freaks out the SS. Freaky Fritz is really freaky. And he would love to have the job mixing those gases and bringing the people into the showers. Probably be able to, because he's so thrilled with killing off people in this way, kill off many more people at a much quicker rate than Johannes would. And so Johannes is faced with the same exact dilemma, or at least very near it, as George was, except for there's the only major difference here is that it's very clear that the gases will be used rather than the gases might be used. That's the major distinction. Johannes is going to probably mix the gases, and yes, he has to do all. He has to plug mix the gases in the canisters that are reusable, plug it into the outside wall of the showers. You have, of course, the guards bring the people in, and then he has to flip the lever to let the gases go into the shower, and that's not great. And then he has to, that's his job. And he's not going to be super thrilled about this. He's going to go pretty slow. He might even sometimes get away with a shower full of people or two less a day than would be average. And certainly he'll do a lot less than Freaky Fritz, who's probably going to, even grow by a third the number of people who are killed off because of his, he's going to be there at 6:30 in the morning instead of 8, Should Johannes take the job to mix gases to kill Jewish people at Auschwitz, but slower than Freaky Fritz? How many of you say yes? The right thing to do is to mix the gases to kill off the Jewish people, but slower than the other guy would. Hey, guys, his kids will eat. Come on. Where's your utilitarian joy here? Come on, utilitarians.
Can utilitarians have joy?
They're supposed to have some joy.
Right? Yeah, they have a broken one.
So you would say yes, he should. If you're actually utilitarian, then yes, he should.
Look at me.
Because you've claimed to be utilitarian twice, including 3 seconds ago. Yeah, so.
It kind of goes back to I'm not the one doing it. Remember earlier when we were like, Pedro's the one doing it.
Yeah, but now in this case, you actually would.
And that's what I'm saying. That's why I'm thinking about back to what we had before. Is like, you would be the one doing it.
Yeah, well, yeah. I think that's exactly right. And then it goes back, I think, to William's example of the whole idea of commitments, right? Like, it's one thing to say, I'm committed to not mixing chemical and biological warfare. That seems kind of detached, and you guys are like, you guys have heard about those atrocities of the Nazis, and you're like, whoa, that's something I am actually committed to. I'm committed to not committing genocide, right? Like, that is something that's more accessible, I think, for us. We're committed to not committing genocide. Is it the right thing to do in this case for Johannes to take the job? You say no. Is it right for George to take the job? It's very similar.
Well, no, I'll say no.
Okay. Anna.
I don't know.
Not sure.
Don't take it.
Don't take it. Are you
Which
switching?
guy are we talking about?
I'm talking about George.
In the first.
Man, now you got more girls.
I know.
Lunch. Can I talk about lunch?
Yes.
Today.
Got off the hook.
So, was that a save by Belmore?
That really was.
It really
Yeah.
was. That was.
If I didn't have to move on to the next class, I'd say, no, you're on.
Oh, God.
Go to lunch today, go to your assigned room, when you get there, have each seat has a place to write your name. So, go there, pick a seat, you're self-selecting, sit wherever you want, but once you pick that seat and written your name, that is your seat for that space on red days. Okay, once you've done that, you don't have to stay there. You can eat there and then go outside. You can go immediately outside and eat. Just today, just check in, get a seat reserved, and then you can go outside if you want to.
Are there spots where students can eat outside specifically, or is it anywhere outside?
Pretty much anywhere outside. I mean, on the high school, junior high side of campus, right? We don't want, not over by elementary, but if you're in that room, you do need to stay at your seat. Okay, so, and it'll be pretty obvious when you see the spaces. Retro Cafe, there's no restrooms in that building, so wash hands, hand sanitizer on your way. There is hand sanitizer over there, but if you want to wash your hands, do that before you get there. If when you're outside at lunch, you want a brief total mask break, you can do that, okay? But by brief, we mean like 3 to 5 minutes. And if you are with friends when you do that, if you're by yourself, you don't have to worry about it. If you're with friends when you do that, take turns, so not everybody's doing it at the same time, and make sure you honor that 6-foot distance. Okay. Any questions? I think that's it. So if you're in an early lunch, it's about time for your lunch. If you're in a later lunch, I'll see you. Some of you have later lunch. I'll be over there.
Saved by Mr. Richard.
Thank you. Virgie.
Bye, Mr.
Okay,
R.
guys, so that's the question that we're asking ourselves. What's the right thing to do? And I think by changing the scenarios a little bit, we can see how difficult it truly is to be a utilitarian. Okay, with that, I guess class is out, and some of you are going to lunch, some of you are going to, is it third period? Why are you gonna go cry?
No, it's a great day. It's a good day to go.
Was it my class?
No, oh, no.
Bye, Mr. Cook.
Can you turn up your next class, by the way?
Not
Mr. Cook.
Hello?
Mr. Cook.
Hello? Can you turn up the Zoom meeting for next class or whoever you have?
Well, guys, your chat was terrible. I don't know what to say about that. What are you
No.
guys thinking?
Because you couldn't hear us.
What was
Yeah,
that?
we tried to like.
We were trying to tell you to turn the volume up.
Yeah, well, the sound was down, so there was that. All right, well, hopefully, it looks like Lindsay already got the heck out.
Oh, she was like.
And the top of the chat was much more interesting. We were talking about chaos theory.
Yeah, it was interesting, and then it went to like PFIX because Sophie said something. We were just responding. We're responding to what people say in class.
This is true.
Yeah,
I would say no to your last question. I would say no. I was paying attention. See, I promise.
yeah, that's good. What about you, Emily? Oh, you're too worried about someone's feet.
No, I would say like it doesn't work because of like the people that you love staying and like actually committing to people.
All right, yeah, sounds good. Okay, guys, hopefully we'll see you in person at some point. So that would be Emily after the break.
Yes.
And Ian, is that you ever?
I don't know.
All right.
Bye,
Everyone.
Mr. Cook.
Bye.
Bye.